Okay, hello Year 10. Right, so I've done an essay which is using the same question that you guys were meant to be answering. Now, I've also highlighted my essay in 3 ways. So there are 3 things that the examiner wants you to do, and those are your AOs. AO1, AO2, and AO3. AO1 is answering the question. So what is your answer to the question, and do you keep linking back to that? So that's the really important idea there. So where are your links? So do you keep linking back to what you think? The second one is analysing the character or language, and that one will be shown in purple. AO3 is using historical context, and that will be shown in pink. So we're going to talk about the history at different times, but we're going to use that to support what we're trying to say. So our language analysis, what are we analysing and how can we support that using the pink? So using the history. So I've started off with one introduction here, right? I believe, so again I'm answering the question here, I believe Lady Macbeth is the worst character in the play because she makes Macbeth kill King Duncan. Shakespeare's message could be that people who want a lot of power, like Lady Macbeth, are very dangerous. So, I need to put a message in my introduction. And the reason I do that is because I know that I can keep linking back to that word dangerous. I can keep linking back to it all the time. And I can link back to it all the way through this, and that's what I want to do. I want to keep linking back to it, because otherwise what you'll find is if you don't know why Shakespeare did it, you kind of just throw yourself off and you don't really go into the right detail. So I'm going to start by using connectives to structure my argument. So I'm going to use firstly, secondly, lastly, and in conclusion. And those are ways that you can make sure that your argument is going forward. Okay, so firstly, Lady Macbeth tells Macbeth to look like a flower but act like a serpent, which is a snake. Anywhere where I'm using quotes, I'll get AO1 marks. She uses a simile when she tells him to look like a flower, which means she wants Macbeth to look like a good person. However, snakes were shown to be evil, like the devil in the Bible. So that's context, isn't it? That's a bit of history there. So I can get some points for AO3. I can get some points for that third one because I've talked about the Bible. So she really wants Macbeth to become evil. The audience dislike Lady Macbeth because she asks her husband to lie and is shown to be dangerous. See how I can link back to that from the beginning? It makes it really easy. So that's my first peel. Now what's good about this peel is that I've used the word simile, because it is a simile, isn't it? To say look like a flower. You've used the word like, so it's a really good simile. But also I'm explaining what that shows me as the audience about Lady Macbeth. So she really wants Macbeth to become evil, and the audience will dislike her. And the reason the audience will dislike her is because she's telling him to look like a good person but actually to be a horrible person. So I'm going to explain my quote and I'm going to tell you what the audience thinks, and I'm going to link back to the message. Then I move on to my next peel. Secondly, Lady Macbeth calls her home my battlements. The word battlements connotes war, and this may show Lady Macbeth is happy to start a war if it means she gets power and becomes queen. Again, I've zoomed in on the word, haven't I? This word connotes war. Battlements, that's where people could fight their wars from. So she's actually calling her home almost like a fortress. This also shows the audience Lady Macbeth is dangerous. So again, I'm linking back to that idea that she's dangerous. Also, she is a woman, so she should not be violent or evil, as women in the 1700s were meant to be caring mothers and wives, but Lady Macbeth is the opposite. The audience is shocked and sees Lady Macbeth as dangerous, so I'm going to keep linking back to it. But also, look here, I'm telling you why the audience believes this. When you use history, it should always be for a reason. You can't just throw in history that seems random. You want to make sure that it supports something. So this really supports this here. The word battlements connotes war. And that's and also that she's not meant to be violent or evil. So that's why it's so shocking. We want to make sure that when we put in history, it supports what we're trying to say and it just explains what we're trying to say a little bit better. So in your essays, you need to think, have I included history and did it explain what I was trying to say? If you've included history but it hasn't explained it, then you've wasted your time because you can't get any marks for that because it's just random. If you're looking back at it and you've done some language analysis but you haven't used any history, could the history have helped you? Could it actually have sort of backed up what you're trying to say? Could it have supported it? So then I go on to my last paragraph. Lastly, even when MacBeth changes his mind about killing Duncan, Lady MacBeth forces him into it by telling him to be a man. This is negative because she seems like she's bullying her husband and forcing him to do evil things. So I'm zooming in on the word bully. I'm zooming in on the word being a man and all the words be a man and the way that this makes her seem like a bully. Also, it shows she is dangerous because women were not meant to tell their husbands what to do in the 1700s. Lady MacBeth would be hated. So remember, I'm using that context there. She shouldn't be telling MacBeth what to do because it's the 1700s and women were meant to be seen and not heard. So Lady MacBeth is hated by the audience and seen as power hungry. Now, power hungry links back to dangerous because you have to remember that women were not meant to be power hungry at the time. And then I've written a little conclusion just so the examiner knows I've answered my question. In conclusion, Lady MacBeth is worse than Macbeth because she forces him to be evil. So that really shows me quite well that I've answered the question. And if you actually have a look at that from above, and I have uploaded a picture of this so you can see it properly and you can read it without my sort of steady hand on the my unsteady hand on the camera, you'll notice that there's lots and lots of purple, but there's also quite a bit of pink and quite a bit of green. Now that means that purple gets us the most marks. So zooming in on our quotations and looking at how the audience reacts gets us a lot of marks. But also looking at history is important because it just makes it nice and clear to the examiner. Actually, this is why I think what I think. Because remember, the whole point of this is to show the examiner what you think of Lady Macbeth. It doesn't have to have lots and lots of quotes in it, so don't worry. In this last one, I didn't even use a quote. I just said that she tells him to be a man. You've just got to remember what happens in the play. So what does Lady Macbeth do? Now, what you need to do is I need you to look at the essay that you've written and look at the essay that I've written, and I need you to tell me what you need to do in future. So what makes this a good essay? And what do you need to do in your own essay to make your essay as good as this? So, do you need to make sure you've explained what the quotations mean? Do you need to make sure that you've talked a little bit about history? Do you need to make sure that you've talked about what Shakespeare's message was? That perhaps you're saying that women are dangerous, or that power corrupts people, that power makes people horrible. What do you need to do that means that you get the marks for all three of these things? Because remember, I'm only asking you to do 3 things. Now, you should have written at least sort of a page and a quarter. That's probably the best thing that you'll be able to do in the exam if you're doing it very, very carefully. If you aim to write a page and a half if you can, because that would be very, very good. So try and get through as much of that as you can. Make sure that you've used keywords that I teach you, like simile. That's really important. And make sure you've used words like connotes or connotations. And also tell me, have you used enough connectives to structure your work? So is your work well structured? And have you written it in different Peel paragraphs? I've indented mine. You can leave a line. I don't mind how you do this, okay? So when you look at mine, what is it that you're realizing that you need to do maybe a little bit better? Because what we want to do is we want to aim to get a good mark on this. So this is a good level 4 essay. Okay, so that's what we want. We want a grade 4 essay. We want our grade 4 essays to look like this, to look similar to this. And that's what's going to be the most important. Okay, so we want to all aim to get a grade 4 so that when we come back to school, we know exactly what we're doing and we're doing really well. Okay, so well done on trying your essay. It's the first time you've written a proper MacBeth response, or these are and you're doing it all outside of school. So you're doing really, really well. I really believe in you. And I'm so thankful that you're coming onto Google Classroom, you're watching my videos, and I'll keep making them as long as they're helpful for you. Okay, so really well done. Let's try and get as perfect as we can so that when we come back, we're all ready to get the most amazing grades we can. So well done.